Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Presents Elements of Horror. My name is Sean.
And I am Abby Normal Anthony.
I'm John.
And I'm Ray. G'day.
And I would just like to say, I reject your premise, Socrates. Respectability, progress, a vanity spawned by fear. The aim of what you call civilization, Ray, is a man in a smoking jacket, whiskey and cider, pressing a button to destroy a planet a billion miles away to kill a billion people he's never seen. Crikey. What happened to Socrates?
I applaud that. That was impressive.
We're going to discuss tonight Ted Kotcheff, 1971, Wake and Fright. Yeah, Ted Kotcheff passed away in April and did a number of just films that are held in high regard. Wake and Fright, First Blood, Weekend at Bernie's. It's a fucking bizarre trajectory, but whatever. So here's like a little crash course in this right now, and this will be a full spoiler discussion. Although, yeah, you can't fucking spoil this movie. It came out in '71. It was originally released outside of Australia as Outback. Okay. And it was around the same time, roughly, as Walkabout. They were two like very prestigious movies that were UK, Australia joint
Same year.
ventures. Say again?
Same year.
Okay, same year. And it bombed, and then it was kind of lost. And so the original negative was lost. By the 90s, nobody knew where it was. And Scorsese had championed this film. Multiple other people. It was based on a novel by Kenneth Cook that was popular. Although I don't know if it was popular like only in Australia or worldwide. I'm not entirely sure. But eventually, there was a re-release in 2009. And so it would have been at some point shortly thereafter that they found like the sound elements and they were able to put it back together. The original film and sound elements were rescued by Anthony Buckland in 2004. So 2009 comes out, and I had read something about it, I don't know where, and put it out of my mind. And then I get a package from my friend Mr. Brown, as he's wont to do, just send me packages, and it's this movie. And I look at it at first, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but cool. And when I go to watch it, I'm watching it, I'm mesmerized. And then a certain scene comes up, and I was like, "Oh my God, I read about this. I know what this is. Oh fuck!" And then it's too late, and I've seen the kangaroo scene, and it's a tough film. I don't know, Anthony, go ahead. Talk about
I
this
was just
movie.
going to say that kangaroo scene is one of the most erotic scenes ever filmed in film history.
That's disturbing, but yes, yeah, it's true. I wasn't going to say it, but guys, so Anthony, like, I know you are I've never seen Walkabout. I know you're a huge fan. So talk about this movie, either in relation to that or just, I don't know, how did you find out about this, et cetera, et cetera.
There's so many wonderful Australian films that I just haven't seen yet. I think we spoke about Next of Kin in our text thread. I still need to get around to that one as well. Really do want
Ooh,
to
that's
see
a good
that
one.
one. Big fan of Nicholas Roeg. Walkabout's one of my all-time favorite films. And coincidentally, this comes out the same year. I am introduced to this movie about 19 or 20. So I'd heard the name before, never had seen the film. Um, I got lucky. Alamo Drafthouse Films is the one that put out redistributed the film. I was lucky enough to get a Blu-ray of it. It's a fantastic transfer from how bad it looked initially. Um, and I got this the year it came out. So what, 2009 you said? And watched it and kind of largely forgot about it. And I was really,
Hmm.
I mean, obviously I liked the film at the time and it was a welcome addition to my collection, but I hadn't gone back to it since I'd watched it. So I'm really happy that
Hmm.
we're able to sit down and watch it again. And since I had, basically forgotten fairly large chunk of it, with the exception of the more shocking scenes, it was nice to really pay attention to a lot of the just finer details in the film. Like in the opening, the barkeep is John Mellion. John Mellion is the
Yep.
father of Walkabout, and yeah, and then we see him in. A lot of folks know him as Mick Dundee's buddy in the in those movies. What are they called? The
Crocodile Dundee.
Crocodile
Crocodile Dundee
Dundee.
films. So he's in the Dundee films as well. But yeah, man, I'm sitting there and I'm watching this movie, and it it left me floored. I mean, I'll be honest, this movie it is a rough watch, like you said. It did kick my ass several times and leaves you with this almost hollow, empty feeling at times. And I mean,
Yes.
obviously that comes across wildly on film when you see our the depths of despair that you see our main figure or main actor go through. And it's just it's very difficult. And I like I have said before on the show, I do like movies that kind of touch you in an ugly spot, and this is definitely one of them. And yeah, I'm so glad I picked this up for $5, believe it or not. Was it Fry's Electronics used to sell a lot of this stuff, and they had a contract with Image, and Image was basically a defunct version of was it Anchor Bay, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And so they would sell all these Image properties for $5 a Blu-ray. So all these Alamo Draft houses were only $5 a movie. So I was able to get that and several other flicks in that line. And I'm extremely grateful that I have this. If I'm not mistaken, now there is a version out from Umbrella, and I believe it's a 4K. Considering on double dipping, I may add that to collection because I really want to see what a scrubbed up copy would look like. But yeah, this movie again, it's I think this is going to be one that I watch a lot more frequently now that my tastes have changed throughout the years. I definitely have a new appreciation for it, and I'm glad that we're here to discuss it tonight.
Right on. John.
Yeah, so this is a film that I've heard about for a long time, read about. Never got a chance to see it, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to do so. I loved it. What can I say? Like Anthony, there's parts of it that left me feeling hollow, but not in a bad way. And the thing, what I've always found fascinating is that, and I've always really loved Ozploitation films. Walkabout, I love as well. That is not an Ozploitation film,
Yeah.
just so we're clear, even though there's like a lot of similarities between Walkabout and this film. But I love that, it had a heyday in Australia during the 70s, and it lasted much longer than it did in the US, like into the 80s. And I love how, and you can see it in this film, they took it much more seriously than the US, and they weren't shy about giving them these films these art house flourishes. And and Fright just, I felt, was just one of the best examples of it. uh I still think my favorite is Next of Kin, which, of course, I've mentioned on the text thread, and I think people need to see,
Yeah.
you like especially if you like Wolf Creek. John Jarrett is in that film as well. um but I would definitely say, for somebody who is a newbie to Ozploitation, Wake and Fright would definitely be my go-to film to introduce somebody to it. um I think by and large, the one thing that just the one thing I couldn't stop thinking about this, the day after I watched it, which is that this is a film that I think captures this idea of existential threat so well, but completely without the assistance of anything supernatural, or anything um surreal, where there's like manipulation. There's this sort of odd realism that it's bending to to create existential dread. And that's what I loved about this.
Well said. Ray?
Well, honestly, I think the first time I heard about this film, was there's it's funny John mentioned the term exploitation, which the first time I'd heard of it is I don't know if anyone else here has seen the documentary Not Quite Hollywood, the wild untold story of exploitation. It's an
No.
really interesting documentary that goes into um how film really started to spring up in the late 60s, early 70s in Australia, and how there was this division of like what was considered like proper and like the kind of art house, like Nicholas Roeg, and then people that were making stuff that was just outright pornographic, uh, horror, like, and this isn't exploitation. It does. I mean, maybe they might have thought of it at one time, and I think it's one of the reasons it gets brought up is because of that scene involving the kangaroos. Um, but the way, yeah, John said it well. Like it does have an existential dread to it. It feels like the that this pressure that exists, that is there, that he is bending to, but feels like he should be able to separate himself, is such that he just doesn't know how to. And it just is so omnipresent and like just controls him that it's almost horror in a way. Like I there were so many moments where I was sitting there to myself like, man, why doesn't he just walk away? But I guess he just feels like either he can't or it's like being caught up in something and you feel like it's a bad idea the moment you're interacting in it, but you think, but is it so bad? I mean, am I really going to regret this? I seem like I'm kind of having a little bit of fun, but this also feels a little barbaric or crude or disgusting. But my options are sitting in my hotel room and just not doing anything. Screw it, let's go with this. And that's like the weird decision he's making, and he just keeps making it, and you're just like, Jesus, like you can't. I feel like that's one of the punishing things about the film is that you're just watching this person make these decisions and keep going back to him,
Yeah.
and until he finally just reaches this breaking point where you're just like, I got to get away, and then it fails at getting away, and you're just like, damn. That and like the whole film, I'm sitting there watching it, thinking like he keeps having these memories of this like hot girlfriend that's waiting for him in Sydney, and I'm like, why doesn't he like call her or wire her and say, "Send me some money, babe. I gotta get out of this town," but he doesn't, and it's crazy. You're just sitting there going like, why is he making these decisions? And I don't know if it doesn't feel like it's a condemnation of his character, but it does feel like for some reason he just, I don't know, maybe he feels lost. Like it it really makes you question like his motivations and like if he's feels as much pressure from these people as it seems, or it's just him dealing with his life, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. The existential dread that you guys are talking about is palpable, and really the opening sequence is he's sitting in his behind his teacher's desk. So, and I should say, so this is Gary Bond is the star, and he plays John Grant, who's a school teacher going on his Christmas holiday, and he takes a train, stops in a small mining town called Bunda Yaba. It's a fictional town created for the movie, and ends up stranded there because he loses all his money gambling. And there's two key scenes with to understanding this character and unlocking the movie and the existential dread. The first is it opens, he's sitting in the schoolhouse, and it's a one-room schoolhouse, children of multiple ages. I mean, one of them looks like he's 25. And he's just waiting out the last few minutes before he releases this. And this is like, it's not like school today where like the teachers are regulated by, you know, like a board and a dean and a principal. Like it's just him and the kids, and they're all sitting there waiting for like the whatever time, you know, noon or whatever, for him to release them. And they're doing nothing but staring at the clock. So he could totally just release them, but he doesn't. And that says a lot about how he deals with, like what you were just talking about, Ray. Like, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just, like, you have agency, sir. But he just doesn't. But the other aspect to that then is this toxic masculinity. And I think this is how people deal with existential dread. I think if you have a toxic male, often it's because they don't know how to deal with their existential dread. And he sees this gambling that they do, and he gets into it, and he wins some money, and he can't walk away, right? He can't walk away. He does, and he goes back, and he loses all his money. He's fucked. And I mean, that's just the microcosm of the movie in a nutshell. He does it all to himself. So
absolutely.
There's no point I ever feel sorry for this dude. I mean, you cringe at what happens to him, but
I don't feel sorry for him. The first scene that I was like, what is happening? Like, I was like, was the scene when he first goes into the bar and the sheriff comes over to him.
Chips Rafferty.
Yes.
His final movie.
He starts talking to him, and he goes, buy you a beer? And the guy, sure. And he takes the beer. And the other guy's talking to him, and then suddenly he just fucking downs his whole beer. Just 12 ounces. Boom. It's gone in one shot. And then he stands there after he downs his shot, and he looks at him. And he just stares at John until he downs his beer. And John feels the stare. Like, there's a moment you see him deal with it like, do I have to down this beer? Like, he thinks about it for a moment, and then he goes, I guess I have to fucking down this beer. So then he downs the beer. And then the guy's like, next round. And then they buys another round. And like, it keeps happening like that, where I remember sitting there thinking like, wow. And I'm glad you explained that it was a mining town, because I honestly was sitting there going like, I have no idea what kind of town this is. And I just thought to myself, why are there so many dudes? That is the fullest bar I've ever seen in my fucking life. There's so many people.
It looks like cruising. Like when they go to the bar, it looks like the scene in Cruising.
It looks like the people are all. It looks like a bar that's full of like people for like a football match or something. But they're all just standing around, and like, I think the answer is like it's like going out and drinking beers every night, or like nothing. And so because that's a choice, they're like, well, I guess I'm gonna go stand around and drink beers. It's the fullest place I've ever seen in my life, like one of the fullest bars I've ever seen. And everyone's just drinking their face off. These people can drink their goddamn faces off. And even at the point where he's like, I've had enough, before he even goes and sees the game that's being played, the gambling, and decides he's like gonna go out, he's gonna go out, back to his hotel room for the night. And the guy's like, well, let me get you a steak. And he's like, I don't know. It's kind of late. It's the best steak you ever had. And he's like, okay. So then he goes, and then of course, you don't just have a steak, you got to have another beer. And so he's drinking more. And I'm like, this goes hand in hand. Like, all activities in this film, usually the ones that have bad ideas behind them, like going to hunt kangaroos or attempting sexual encounters with bizarre women, are followed by drinking your face off.
Yeah,
it's all he does.
Followed by and preceded by drinking your face off, but
yes, and during. In
the commentary, Ted Kotcheff said Chips Rafferty doesn't have, I think it's the uvula, the thing in your throat that like, the gulp reflex. Yeah. So he could literally just open his mouth and pour the beer down his throat. And he said he was the only actor. He refused to drink non-alcoholic beer, and they would do
Oh,
multiple takes. So
wow.
he's like, I don't know. He was never drunk, but he just kept pouring beer after beer directly down his gullet. It was
Maybe he's just an
hysterical.
alcoholic.
During the
Anthony, do you have a uvula?
Last I checked, yes.
Okay.
during the opening credits, when you get the music starts to kick in and it's sort of like this gentle guitar strumming, I swear, swear to you, I almost expected that Robbie Burns song from the beginning of Wicker Man, the corn ribs and body ribs, to
Yeah.
start kicking in, just largely because spending time with this guy just before that, just like the kind of total dorky fish out of water kind of feeling that I'm
Yeah.
getting from him. It's like the police officer when he first arrives to Summer Isle. And I started
Good
getting
comparison.
those vibes. I mean, and
Yeah.
and Robin Hardy did that film like 2 years later, but and then all of a sudden things start to shift and you get like these almost very haunting kind of like wood instruments, like, and it reminds you, it's like, oh yeah, no, this isn't just like, he's a fish out of water. We're in the middle of the outback, and this is like a Western. And before, you get this opening
Yeah.
shot that looked almost like he was inspired by Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West, the opening shot of that film.
Oh yeah, dude, totally. And I'll tell you, in the commentary, Kotcheff says that is actually um, it's a 360-degree shot,
Yeah, yeah,
and they
yeah.
had the camera on a cherry picker.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, I don't know, because the cameraman had to like slowly turn by steps, and he's like, he did it you can't tell at all. But that's an area called Horse Lake, and he just laughed. He's like, there has been water here since like the dinosaurs, but the area is called Horse Lake. I
See,
just
I
thought that was
rented
funny.
I rented my copy from Vidiot's, and it's the exact same one that Anthony got, and say exact same one you have. So it's like I'm gonna have to go back and get it and listen to the commentary this time
It
around,
was
because
really good.
that's interesting as hell. So we just kind of start out with those vibes, and then like the more and more as as the film proceeds, I kept finding myself saying, I am John Grant's complete and utter lack of surprise. I am John Grant's smirking revenge. Just like
Yeah.
this guy, like, just kind of breaking down and getting all like Edward Norton and Fight Club, just sort of like he's realizing like, what the fuck have I done with my life?
That's a really good comparison.
Yeah, actually really is, having just watched Fight Club recently.
It's really apropos.
Anthony, what do you think about that?
About what?
About the comparison. Well, let's talk about the existential dread, or we could talk about anything you want to talk about. But
Let's talk about how good kangaroo meat is.
Oof, man.
never had it.
Kangaroo
Never had it
jerky.
myself.
I've had kangaroo jerky before.
Hmm.
Now, the way I view the Yaba is kind of like for the straight man, a black hole. I mean, they describe the town as, was it like mining for mineral or something like that? So that's
Yeah.
what the guys do at night to entertain themselves. They just go to the bar and drink the pain away, but they're happy with it. This is the life they've chosen, and albeit, well, maybe from an outside viewpoint, it may be mediocre. It's not to them, and they're happy with the way they live, albeit barbaric at times. Like, it's just, that's their society that they've built for themselves. So when we get the teacher's like pompous attitude towards the people that he would deem lower than him,
Yeah.
and not as smart, when you get that, it comes across where it's like, okay, let's see what happens when the frat boy, or not the frat boy, but the
You're not
the
far
prep,
off.
the prep school kid ends up hanging out with the tough guys for a while. Let's see where it goes. And it's so strange to see him get sucked into that black hole, and that um journey into degradation, and how comfortable everyone else is around him. And I think that's I guess what that was the lure, is that, hey, I'm gonna be okay no matter how bad it gets. these people are my friends, right? It's not going to get that bad. We do find out later on that it does get much, much worse, to the point of, attempted suicide. And, that's after the harrowing escape where he finally, has enough and says, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm just walking out today.
Yeah.
And that scene that ultimately just becomes a trope in majority of horror movies today, where it's like, yeah, I'll take the ride, cool, get me as far away as you can, and then you end up right back where you started. That scene, like, my I could feel my gut drop when he realized where he was at and he climbed out the back of that truck, and the driver's just like, well, I told you I'd take you to a town.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like you said. Yeah, exactly. You said the
so
city, the
so
opposite city.
again, yeah, going back to that gravitational pull of like a black hole. That's just that's the sense I got from it. But it's just interesting to see the creatures that live there, and how they get along as a society, and how he's obviously, like you said, the fish out of water. Um, but I think, obviously the one takeaway is, if you think you're the smartest guy in the room, you're probably not.
Yeah.
And that hubris, played out in fantastic fashion for this guy. Um, the Doc character, from what I gathered, he's introduced in the book for a moment, and I guess in the book his role isn't that big. The encounter, the quote unquote encounter that they have, I guess, is a smaller piece in the book, and then from what I heard, he's not in the rest of the book at all.
Okay.
So the Donald Pleasance character is actually an expanded role from what was in the novel. I would like to go back and read that. Uh, I w- the one thing that got me right away was this large wide angle shot of the, and it's far enough back to be able to get like the whole train station. And I feel like you don't get a lot of those shots, and I feel like that's the freedom, that's the open space, and everything else is so tight during the rest of the film until you see that wide angle shot again of him at the train station, where it's like, here's the freedom again, here's the escape.
Right.
And even realizing, going back toward where he came from, when you get that large shot again, where it's like, wow, I really didn't have it as bad as I thought I did. And no, that just the desert in itself is a suffocating presence. It just has this, it's got these characteristics of just either just haunting darkness because they choose to be out in it, and all nefarious deeds that go on in that darkness, in said darkness, and just the burning daylight, and it's awful. You have no other choice but to hide in a shack drinking beer, or you work the mines, so you're out of it all day long. So you tend to thrive in darkness, and I think it's just this really twisted juxtaposition between the two, between the light and dark. Uh, Man, yeah, push on. Who else wants to go?
I think that there's a certain amount of it that is also culture shock, or not knowing how to deal with this other culture. Like, you get reminded that he's actually English and he's in Australia, and he doesn't have an understanding of their cultural norms, and the way that, like, the first time I took note of it, like, because like the first time he gets offered a beer is on the train and he passes on it. And those guys kind of give it a shrug. Okay. There's probably an element of it, like they probably talked about him afterward, like, okay, whatever. But for the rest of the film, whenever, like, if someone offers you a drink and you do not take the drink, it is an insult. It is like they take it as an affront to their character. Like, the biggest moment that really you could feel it is that moment when he's in the bar after
Yeah.
he's lost all his money, and he starts talking to an older guy, and the older guy's, "You don't like the yaba?" "No, I don't like the yaba." And he's like, "Buy you a beer?" "I don't have any money. I don't want beer." "I didn't say I was gonna make you pay for it. I said I'd buy you a bloody beer. You want the goddamn beer?" He's like,
Yeah.
"Fine, I'll take the beer." And then the next scene, they're laughing and carousing around, and you realize that like the thing that you said, Anthony, of like they can sense that he's not one of them, and the drinking is a test, and it's something that like if he doesn't take, then it's an insult to them, it's an affront to them, and like they interpret it as, wait, are you calling me a piece of shit? Are you calling me an alcoholic? Because sounds like you're calling me an alcoholic because you don't want a beer from me. Because if you're not going to take a beer from me, then like you think you're better than me, that you don't need a fucking beer. Like there's an insult there in not accepting. So like he needs to take it, and just keeps like having to follow the steps, because if he doesn't, he knows that he's going to have trouble from these people to a certain extent. Like, and he does enjoy the moments too, but at the same time, I feel like he knows there's a certain threat to it as well. Like he feels dread.
Yeah, I think it's just that old horror trope too, where it's like, let's see how far I get myself into trouble,
Oh yeah.
without under the guise of I don't want to be rude. Let me accept this so I'm not rude, and then not understanding the consequences of said actions. And yeah, it's something we've seen in 100 horror movies before, where it's like, oh, come in. I mean, fuck, Hansel and Gretel.
Heretic last year, right? Like use
Yeah.
that
There it is.
times a million, right?
And that's
Yeah.
exactly the kind of, trope I'm talking about, where it's like, out of fear of being rude, you you inadvertently, put
Yeah.
the final nail in your coffin. Thankfully, he did it in this film, but yeah.
But by the way, Ray, can you, for the rest of the episode, can you do the rest of the episode in that Australian accent that you just did?
I'm sorry, I can't help it. Like, for some reason, when I do,
No,
when I
no,
talk
it's
about
great.
characters,
Dude, it's great.
yeah, I end up doing that. It's something that I mean, Sean's heard it before, but when I tell a story about Jesus and I actually quote Jesus, I talk like Jesus. I can't help
Yeah. And for the audience, he doesn't mean Jesus Christ.
it.
But he does a pretty killer Christ impersonation as well. Yeah, well, and the rub here is that the drink, everything you guys just said is exactly right. But I know that kind of peer pressure. I experienced it when I was like 15, and I left it behind me shortly thereafter. So the fact that a grown man can't say no, or feels like he has to drink his beer as fast as the guy without the uvula, I'm just like, what are you, a child? But also it's that toxic masculinity, and he perceives them on some level as, oh, these are my friends, like you said, right?
Yes.
But he also, on a different level, on a lizard brain level, perceives him as a threat. So he goes along. And the rub is the drinking is only the first test. Because once you do that, then there's all the other tests. And it's like, oh, we're going to go out and fight, or we're going to go out and kill kangaroos or whatever. And we keep dancing around this, so I want to reference it real quick. Like, there is actual kangaroo death in this. And now,
Yes.
So here's the thing. The director, Ted Kotcheff, is a vegetarian, and he regrets doing it the way he did it. But I had to listen to the commentary because rewatching this, there was a certain scene that did not involve driving with a kangaroo that I was like, I hope to God that's fake. And it is. But so what they did was every night, because kangaroos are essentially giant rats for Australia. So there's like a culling season where guys go out, and the government pays them to go out and kill these things to lower the population. Otherwise, it gets out of control. And so they basically just contracted to go put a camera on one of those and then go out and shoot, and then they shot their stuff with the characters. And in the commentary, he's very specifically showing you certain things where it's like, oh, it looks like we hit that kangaroo with the car, but if you watch, we don't. Or there's the scene that I was referencing a few minutes ago that I was like, I hope that's fake. So they're driving around shooting these things, and they're not really doing that. So they're intercutting the footage of the actors and then the actual culling, government sponsored, which I'm not saying that makes it okay. It doesn't. You know what I mean? I'm not going to weigh in on that because I don't know what it's like to have a kangaroo pest problem, right? So that could be awful, and they terrify me. But there's a scene where it's the two guys. It's Donald Pleasance as Doc Tyson. It's our lead character, and it's a guy named Dick and a guy named Joe, and that's Jack Thompson and Peter Whittle, and they're out doing this. And then there's another test, and that's they go mano-a-mano with a fucking kangaroo and fucking fight the thing. And then you see, I forget if it's Dick or Joe, they literally get it in a headlock and cut its throat with a fucking knife.
Yes.
And it's fake. Anything. So Kotcheff was talking about how this kangaroo, they found it. It had one eye shot out, but it was alive, so it had survived a culling. And they basically, he said they always had a government agency for the protection of animals on hand or whatever, and they basically shot this. They put makeup blood on the kangaroo. There's a couple instances of that, and then they basically actually had the actor kind of wrestle with the thing. And then he said this kangaroo hated people and it willingly fought with them. And then at some point they were just like, okay, we got what we need. And they just turned to leave. And the kangaroo was like, wait, what now? And he said he called it Nelson. He said he gave it a name. He actually went up and said, you did a great job. You're free to go. And the kangaroo looked at him, and then they just drove off, and it's like it was perplexed. It didn't understand. But so that made me feel really a lot better about this sequence because, it's rough because you're seeing actual culling footage, and he photographs some of the remains. There's a really chilling shot of a couple carcasses. One's cut in half. And it's rough. So this, I don't believe in trigger warnings, but I would want to know before I saw a movie if that was in there. But I really don't think it comes from the same place as or it's this. I don't think it's the same thing as Cannibal fucking Holocaust, which is a movie I just will never watch again because
no, that feels kind of like sensationalism, whereas this feels purposeful.
Yeah,
I don't know if because I was watching the film and I got to that and I was like, and I think I saw part of the way through because I had to watch it in pieces. Part of the way through, I looked up a Wikipedia, the Wikipedia article about the film, and there's this whole section about that controversy, and there is the producer's note that's at the end of the film, which I can read right now. The hunting scenes depicted in this film were taken during an actual kangaroo hunt by professional licensed hunters. For this reason, and because the survival of the Australian kangaroo is seriously threatened, these scenes were shown uncut after consultation with the leading animal welfare organizations in Australia and the United Kingdom. And then it continues with this. The hunt lasted several hours and gradually wore down the filmmakers. According to the cinematographer Brian West, the hunters were getting really drunk and they started to miss. It was becoming this orgy of killing, and we, the crew in italics, were getting sick of it. Kangaroos hopped around helplessly with gun wounds and trailing intestines. Producer George Wallaby faded after seeing kangaroos splattered in a particularly spectacular fashion. The crew orchestrated a power failure in order to end the hunt. So it feels to me, this scene, and it's interesting that you bring up a Cannibal Holocaust. It feels to me kind of like when Bambi's mother is killed in Bambi, which for anyone, because everyone sees it when they're a kid, and it's surprising that more adults at the time didn't stop and go, "Hey, why is there the mother deer getting murdered in this kids film? What the hell is going on here?" and like stopping their, and like especially people who are like Second Amendment people, stopping and going like, I'm not gonna ever show my kids this, because it does have this effect of going like, ooh, this isn't right. um yeah, what are we doing, like, um and it does question the whole sport of hunting, and like especially hunting as sport. It's not, because these guys aren't going out, they're not collecting the kangaroos for nutrition, they're not like stopping them. Like there's a scene later on where we see him shoot a rabbit, and then it cuts to he's eating the rabbit, and it almost feels like forgivable because he's just trying to get through the desert. He doesn't have any money. He's
It's
walking
circle of
along.
life.
Yeah, he just has his gun. So when he shoots the rabbit and then you cut to him eating the rabbit, you're like, oh, okay, he's eating the rabbit. These guys just leave these dead kangaroos out there in the middle of everything. And it's not to like help feed whatever animal life is out there. Like, oh, a koala is going to see this dead kangaroo and go to Chow Town. Like, no, it's just to
Right.
kill this thing for fun. And it does feel particularly evil, and like does make you go like, this is messed up. And it's even more evil, and it's added to it by the fact that they're just getting pissed drunk. Like they're just blasting their faces off with beers and then going out and going like, now that I've got a gun, I'm going to go out and kill something. It just feels so messed up. And you're like, yeah, these aren't good people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same with the scene where they're having lunch and just leaning over their shoulders and shooting fox for no reason.
Yep.
And he even asks, he's like, "Oh, okay, so should we go get the pelts?" And they're like, "No, there's no point. They're all mangy." And so so he has this, perplexed look on his face. Well, why are we killing them then? What's the point in even doing this? There is no point. Just killing for fun. It's bizarre. So yeah, I get what you're saying there.
Well, I mean, I think it kind of adds up to the experience that he has. Like, I mean, is there any purpose towards anything they do in this film? The drinking, the having crazy parties, the killing kangaroos, the attempting to have sex with Art's daughter. Is any of it purposeful or to make themselves happier, or is it just something to do?
Well,
Like,
so Kotcheff calls this, and I quote, this film, I quote, a study in corrosive loneliness.
yes, absolutely. Because he is surrounded by people at times, but he feels. I don't think I ever felt a point where that character doesn't feel lonely.
They all do. They all suffer the
Oh,
same
yeah.
existential dread. They just deal with it differently, and they have a boys' club, I mean, and so that's how they deal with it. Is they get drunk. They can't even. They fight each other when there's nothing else to do. Like Dick and
Yes.
Joe just start fighting one another, right? I don't know. John,
Mhm.
thoughts on anything that we've just discussed?
Yeah, I mean, it's this was difficult to watch. I mean, but it's like I understood how it was done, and it wasn't uh, flippant the way so many films, you've like films in Europe and even the United States were around the same time, and yeah, don't get me wrong, I love Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch, but it's like it's always very, very difficult for me to stomach. But yeah, I mean, and you kind of used like a very interesting word there, orgiastic, and just sort of like comparing that to the way like, the town is, and how it's, just sort of like, the black hole, or like, in Greek mythology, the land of the lotus eaters, that kind of
Right.
idea
Yeah.
that, just sort of people trying to escape, they just get sucked into, and, easy to get into, not so easy to get out of. And it just also reminded me about how, as I feel like this is a very good looking film, but I felt like it handled night shots really well, just also as a side note.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah,
with that
that's a good
100%.
call. That's a good call. Because there's many films where you see like they they try to cheat with like we're gonna film this during the day and then we're just gonna like we're gonna use either like we're going to turn the brightness down or we're going to use like film not film I forget what it's called, not lenses but like
Filters.
filters, and we're going to cheat it that way. And this film doesn't do that. It just uses night photography and it does it very well. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, it just adds to
um
this kind of like nightmare to it. It's like
yes.
it's a nightmare that sort of that just reminds you that it need not, have scary monsters, or ghosts to qualify as a nightmare. It can be just as real as, just a shitty day at work, just maybe taking two clips up a bit.
Yes, exactly. That's a good way of putting it.
That's interesting, John. So, if I can, I'd like to ask, expand a little bit on the nightmare thing because I feel like this movie. I mean, Wake in Fright, Wake, right? I feel like this movie is a
Yeah.
nightmare.
hmm Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the whole like was it real or was it all just a dream, because I always find that just sort of a cheesy escape hatch, people to have to like
Yes, and I don't mean an actual
get it
nightmare like a
get out of
dream.
thinking. Yeah, no. I hear you on that. What but yeah, this is a nightmare, just very much like a living nightmare. And it's like um that just really kind of resembles, our own. I've not really tried to think about, like whether or not, because he's not because he's doing something very interesting with this film where he's not populating this nightmare with like a lot of these, sort of Freudian figurines,
No,
like
it's all very literal.
yeah, exactly. No, it's all very, very literal. And in so many ways it's like, we can kind of glom on to that, in ways that maybe we wouldn't with other films, but we don't really realize we're doing it and towards the end. And I really had never thought about the title Wake in Fright until then. I just like really just sort of thought, okay, that's a cool title, that's interesting. But yeah, that kind of takes on the quality of it. And again, a lot of the night shoots, yeah, it does kind of come through. Especially with the use of repetition as well. You get these repeated shots as well. And that's just uncanny, and that's, just the definition of a nightmare.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It is. I think it's the nightmare. Like I think we've all probably brushed up against, or maybe had experiences when we were younger, where you're just with the wrong person at the wrong time, and things go from like a normal day to like, oh shit, to oh what the fuck, and it could be worse, but you come back from it. And this movie, it's like it almost is like it's like it should be like awake in fright, like as in the nightmare is
Mhm.
real, it's not a dream,
Yeah.
because it's just the smallest little. He if he had just not gone back to that gambling thing after he'd won.
And imagine either you're unable or you do not have the fortitude to convince people that what is happening is insane and you need to get out of there. I mean, because you keep thinking about this line in the film, like the oh, what is it? It's like yeah, it's like all little devils are proud of hell.
Yeah,
That's a good way of thinking about it because I one of the ways I interpreted the title was that it's that morning or even afternoon after where he wakes up from going out heading kangaroos, uh having an argument on the porch and drinking a lot and shooting foxes or whatever else, and then waking up either on a floor or in a hotel room and realizing like, fuck, I lost all my money. What am I gonna do? Shit, what did I do last night? And then
Oh yeah, this guy
remembering
raped
those
me.
things. What I mean, there's a lot of stuff that like he wakes up, he wakes up to and is like, oh God, what did I do? Like, and it's he just keeps doing this thing where he goes, this isn't a good idea. Well, maybe this won't be that bad. And then getting there, going through it, and then waking and then awaking the next day and going like, oh, that was bad.
It's the drunkard's
That was
lament,
bad. Yeah. And he just keeps having it. He keeps having it.
and
It's
he doesn't learn. So
crazy.
he,
He
he
doesn't learn.
at
Um,
all.
I mean, the closest thing we get to like an actual him having a real nightmare is before he attempts suicide and he has that whole memory. And
Yeah,
I feel like it's more of him playing through the memories in his head, like even the coins coming back up and landing on Doc's eyes. It's his mind playing through the memories and just haunting him.
yeah,
And that's the nightmare is like it's crazy because even the character that he feels I feel like the closest to because of pedigree, education, whatever you want to call it, Doc. The real moment I feel like of separation for him versus Doc is not that he's just here. What else is he gonna do? It's that moment when he talks, I forget the woman's name, but he talks about the girl, Doc, and he's like, that's the kind of girl you can settle down with someday. And he's just so disgusted because Doc realizes who she is. Doc realizes that whoever is the new guy or it's his turn is going to have his moment with her. And Doc, having known that thing about her, is still in. he's still like, he's still like,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, why else would you want the girl? Why? Of course, you want the girl that everyone wants. Come on, that makes sense to him. And John is so disgusted by it, and he's like, "Why would you want the girl that everyone wants and can have?" It bothers him so much that he's like disgusted by it, and he loses any kind of attraction he had for her at all, and she becomes something vile to him. But yeah, it's a real moment of separation from him versus Doc. Like he
yeah.
doesn't feel it as much before that as that moment, and that's when he's just like, "Ooh, we really are different people." Like
It,
there's a point I think where he kind of understands him and just thinks like, "Well, he's like me. He's just kind of in this desperate situation. He's just trying to like live life however he can try and live it." But then he realizes at some point, no, he likes this more than I do. He's
yeah.
enjoying this.
Anthony, you have thoughts on the Doc character, Doc Tyson?
Beautiful man. No, it's interesting how the mood changes when he shows up wherever he's at. Um, I was gonna ask you guys about who your favorite on-screen performance was, and I was gonna lead with Donald Pleasance actually. Um, how he's just able to command the room around him, and everybody is immediately enthralled by anything he has to say. Um, yeah, man. Pleasance, I don't feel like he's a terrifying character until he is, but
Yes.
just watching him delight in the madness that's going on around him, that
Yes.
in itself is horrifying.
Yeah.
Much like a demon in hell, very, very fucking happy with himself and the fucking shit he is, you know, enveloped in. Um, but yeah, a fantastic performance from him. Um, but yeah, I think that every time he's on screen, it's almost like the hand being extended, like, here, now we're going to go on to the next fucked up thing. So
Yeah.
I feel like he's the provocateur that's going to introduce you to your next vile deed. And I think that's what's cool about that character. And then also how he just cleans up at the end. Super sober, or under the guise of being, possibly sober,
Yeah.
well dressed, well groomed, back like in doctor mode. It's so interesting how far he was willing to take the lead character down the rabbit hole of again degradation, unto the point of assault, and then still have this odd, I guess, characteristic of caring enough to want to take him to the hospital after, not let him bleed out, and see that he's okay. Like, it doesn't make sense, but at the
He
same
gets him his
time, it's like,
train ticket so he can leave town and go
yeah.
back to his teaching position.
And so
I,
it, again, it's just like, it's this nice like introduction to hell, and now you're free, go out into the world. But yeah, Donald Pleasant's character, I think, is the one that stole the show for me, just because of the I don't want to say evil that he embodies, but this the lure that he has, and the lure that the allure that he presents to people around him, that, hey, let's all, you can come and you can be a part of all this stuff too. And again, he's very willing to extend the hand because misery loves company. That's what I got to say about his character. And honestly, I like the trip that our main character goes down, but for some reason, there's just something about Donald Pleasance that is completely just commanding, and again, borderline beautiful to watch. It's method, and it's just fucking fantastic. He's my favorite character in the film. What about you guys?
Donald Pleasance, and what's striking is that with his reputation at the time, this is pre Dr. Loomis, but
Yes.
like
Mhm.
post Ernstophe Blofeld. So he's definitely, you use the word like alluring. Yeah, he definitely has that vibe to him.
Yeah. I mean, he changes John Grant's, until he appears. Everything happening to John Grant is by his own, negligence or stupidity, but it's also happenstance. But as soon as the Doc Tyson character comes in, there starts to be an element of orchestration of the nightmare, and I think that's he is extremely intelligent. So you have to wonder, like, he takes John Grant down this further down the spirals of degradation, and then, like you said, you know, gets him to the hospital, gets him a train ticket, cleans up, takes him, sends him off. So it's like he's orchestrated all this and then pulled him out of it. So like he just did it for
Almost
what,
like a
like,
plaything, like a toy being thrown away.
exactly. It's such an interest. While you were talking about that, Anthony, I actually had this brief flash of Pleasance's character like shirtless with the frying pan where he's eating the food, with
Yeah.
the spatula, but with like the pinhead makeup on. like he's just welcoming him to hell. I have such sights to show you.
Yeah.
Ray, to Anthony's question, favorite character, I would say Pleasance is my favorite character. I like Al quite a bit, but I think Pleasance steals the show by far. Best performance. Although Jeanette, I forget that actress's name off the top of my head. It's Sylvia Kay. I think her performance is extremely understated, and I think it's very good. Like the scene where she just becomes erotic all of a sudden, and like it's so disturbing because it's such desperation. I mean, I don't know. There's like a master level of control in that performance, in that scene, I feel like. But Pleasance, I don't know, he reigns. What do you think, Ray?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with everyone else. I mean, it's Pleasance for me too. Um, I don't know. You know, I think there for some reason I don't think of him as like a demon. I almost think of him as like the devil. Uh,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
it's I will offer these temptations. I will show these things to you. I will let you to experience these things. Um, and then if you get pushed too far, oh, oh, my bad. Let's get you. Like this is not for
yeah,
you. It's okay. We'll get you going. We'll get you going. Like it feels like I'm not going to delve into Judeo Christianity, but like there's like you know there's things that you've like there's whenever you see the devil in films and like there's a certain amount of like the character being portrayed as like there's rules he has to follow and
right,
like you know, he can tempt you, but if you at some point push back and are like, no, this isn't what I want, then the rules say you have to throw that fish back. And it feels a little bit like that thing, like that feels like a little bit like what's happening at the ending. Like, oh, oh, I thought you were kind of getting used to this. Like I have grown used to it. And you're not. It's actually a nightmare for you. So my bad. Sorry about that. I was just trying to make you acquainted to it like I have become. Sorry
right.
about that. Go back to your life as a teacher. Trust me, it will be make you more happy and fulfilled than ever coming back to anything like this is. Make sure to stay on that track, my boy. And like, I think that's why he does what he does. Like, I feel like maybe there's even a part of himself that sees the fact that John gets pushed to such a point where he's like, there's no this is an endless cycle and like I have to escape it. And if I have to end my life to escape it, I will. That maybe there's a little bit of even pity for himself that he Doc can see that he's lost that ability to pull back from that anymore. And he's so entrenched in it that he can't even like see like this is wrong and he can't even like escape it himself anymore. And maybe that's part of why he helps John. Maybe that's part of why he like saves him. Maybe that's part of why he gets this train ticket out of town because he realizes like, man, I wish I still had that ability to not want this, to see that there's something else. But I'm here. I'm staying here. This is who I am now. So good luck to you. I hope you don't have to ever come back to this. Like maybe that's it.
Yeah, yeah. I would say like the horror element of the. I mean, we've covered like there's a. I think there's a lot of horror elements. This is not a horror movie, but goddamn, is it
Yeah.
adjacent as fuck.
Yeah.
But there is, and you can go from Texas Chainsaw Massacre through. I mean, it's more movies than I can even ever mention. That idea that the people that are the fish out of water show up and they think that they're better than everybody else, right? And this movie, Anthony, you mentioned, is it John Mellion is the guy, where John Grant stays when he's teaching. It's a hotel slash lounge. I love that, like
Yeah.
lounge, and you go in there and But in the commentary, Kotcheff pointed out something that I would never have caught, and he even says nobody would. Only Australians catch this. So we get that opening where the school day ends, right? And then John Grant walks to his hotel, gets his stuff, and then he has a beer before he catches the train. And so he's friendly with the proprietor, John Mellion's character. He sits down to have a beer. And the character's name is Charlie. He pours John Grant a beer. It's he just pours the beer. It's a drought. It's got a huge head on it. He pours himself a beer. It's got no foam on it. He like, and you see the way he looks at John Grant at the beginning, and at the end, and he's just like, you fancy ass fuck.
It's a
Like,
disdain for sure.
it's a disdain. And so the whole movie, like John Grant thinks he can hang with the cool guys, the street toughs. It's like, dude, you can't.
Yeah.
Because and it's not because you're like ultimately you would be able to if you would just it's that hubris that you mentioned, Anthony. If it's like if you just get rid of that, but that's who he is, right? He doesn't want to be there, it's beneath him, blah blah blah.
And ultimately, I feel like he does um, feel that he can hang because you see, the ride home on the train where the guys offer him a beer again, and he says, "I'll take one. Yeah, I
Yep.
can hang." Chugs the thing like nothing. He has a he's able to kind of unwind a bit. But yeah, I get what you're saying. He's a learned man from England. He's not from here, and thinks he's better than everyone else, gets to go on vacation. He's going to Sydney while I'm stuck here, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, you can see the disdain. But that's funny. I didn't notice that he gave him a beer with a huge head and then he gave himself a perfect pour. I didn't notice that at all.
I never would have noticed that. And that's something I would notice if it happened in front of me at a bar, I would notice it.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's a
But
cultural thing where it's just like it's a rude thing to do. I would imagine so.
I mean, and he doesn't even finish that beer.
Hmm.
So and there's a continuity gap because he like starts to gather up his stuff and he like takes like a quick pull on it and sets it down. There's like less than a third left, but then the camera angle changes and it's empty, but he doesn't finish that beer. That's the last beer he doesn't finish because once he gets to the yaba, he's got to fucking drink with it. And I'm looking at that going like, I would have been, you could never, it doesn't matter. I would never drink like that. And I mean, I like beer. I drink beer. Um, no,
But
no,
there's a difference.
I'm an
You
adult.
like
Like,
you like to you like to savor beer.
well, I
Isn't there
mean,
like
These people
tomato
aren't
juice?
savoring nothing.
wait,
They're
that's
drinking
true.
to get plastered. They're not
That's
drinking to enjoy.
that's true. John, what do you say about tomato juice?
Yeah, isn't like one of them like have like tomato juice or like they mix it with something
Oh,
because
red beer. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, red beer. That's a thing. Oh God, when I heard about
looks
that as a
really
bartender,
gross.
yeah, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. There are two drinks I refused to make when I was a bartender. It's that and scotch and milk. Nope, not doing it. Go
No,
somewhere else.
No
just
red tick beer for you, huh?
No.
Needs more
Oh.
fog.
Talking about that scene made me think about something, and that's that like one of the things I feel one of the things I feel that separates the John from all the rest of the characters is how should I put it? It feels like he has I want to say maybe optimism about life that others do not have,
He doesn't
and
have a
that's
dead end job. Well, he does, but
well
he's better than it
he
in his head, right? He's just
he
doing
is
this for
better than it
now.
in his head,
He's
and he
Dante
does
from Clerks. I'm not even
he
supposed to be here today.
but he also feels like there's more and that life can get better. And I think the rest of the characters have given up on that concept and are like, what do you mean there's more? What do you mean there's better? This is it, pal.
And they're
It's
happy.
it it's
There's
it's
something
it's
he's
it's
not.
it's working in your mind and working in the mind. It's getting drunk with your boys at night and it's going out and shooting some kangaroos. What the fuck is with all this complexity and bullshit that you're trying to come up with? It's he thinks there's more. And because he thinks there's more, I think it's one of the major things that always is going to separate him from those other characters.
Yeah, whereas Doc is the same kind of person, but he embraces it. So he'll talk fancy
Yeah.
in the midst of every fucked up thing you can imagine that the other guys are doing. Oh man.
Well, I feel like Doc has also lost a little bit of that. Like I don't think he feels that same like life can be better. Like this is things are going to get better. I think he thinks that like they can be different. They can't be better.
Yeah,
It's going to be the
I
same.
like that.
Like I think Doc believes that like if he was a straight laced doctor that was working his job all the time and was going out and let's say he marries the Annette character and they have a couple kids and like he's been a good father. I think that he thinks to himself like, would that necessarily make me happy or any different than it is right now? Like I feel like he knows like I feel like that would be a desperate situation too, and he just knows like this is gonna be just living and like to a certain extent that life is kind of like difficult journey as it is, and he just thinks like, look, it's gonna be this bullshit or it's gonna be that bullshit, and like I guess
Right.
I'd rather take this bullshit all day long than to live in a tight constrained way and dealing with stress and bullshit.
Yeah, well said. Final thoughts, Anthony.
If you want to watch a, descent to hell in its lower circles, here it is. But is it unfair of me to, view it that way? Because again, these are how people choose to live their lives happily, and who am I to judge? But ultimately, I do think this film is that descent, and you bite the apple, there's going to be a consequence, and that's what happens. And is it an enjoyable watch? At times? Is there beauty to be embraced? At times? Is it something that assaults our senses and morality? Absolutely. And in that perfect, maelstrom of everything I just mentioned, it's I think it's a near perfect piece. So definitely watch the film.
Yeah, well said. And I will just say it's a descent into hell, not because we're judging those people, but because we're seeing it through John Grant's experience.
Bingo.
So, John, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think this also makes for an interesting marrying of elements of horror with the Western. And I've always just sort of thought that that was something that Exploitation did exceptionally well. I mean, we often think of these types of films as having a history rooted in post-apocalyptic, which they do. And I'm not talking about Mad Max. I'm talking about like even further back into the 50s. But yeah, revisioning the Western as this film does in very interesting and exciting ways that collides the two worlds. It's just very, very beautiful, and it's a stunning film to look at. But yeah, this is definitely, Yaba is definitely one of Dante's circles.
Well said.
Ray?
Well, I mean, it's so much that has already been pointed out that's great that it's a little bit hard to follow. But yeah, I mean, it's a great film. I had it's out there, so you can rent it and stream it. But um, I did find a physical copy, and I found it at my local library, which I think kind of speaks volumes about the film as a piece. Like,
Yeah.
that they feel the need to keep it at a library. They feel the need to keep it there and be able to rent. And um, it for some reason, maybe because it's another film that I borrowed from my library, not rented, but borrowed from the library to watch was oh, I'm totally blanking on the name right now. The one where Bowie plays an alien.
Oh,
Oh,
Man
Man
Who
Who
Fell
Fell
to
to
Earth.
Yeah, Men Who Fill the Earth, and
Great
like,
movie.
Nicholas Rogue film.
Yep.
yeah. Oh, there you go, Nicholas Roeg. Maybe that's another reason why I thought of it. Another Australian director. It feels important. It feels worthy of a watch. I don't. subscribe to the concept that necessarily things you watch should be always be pleasurable. Like they should challenge you, they should make you think, they
Yeah.
should make you uncomfortable. And I think that level of discomfort uh makes you reconsider the world, makes you reconsider yourself. Like you said, I think part of the problem is that, and it's an apt comparison. I forget who made it, maybe John earlier, to the Wicker Man, and that, you know, I didn't see the Wicker Man until maybe like a couple of years ago. And one of the things that I kept sitting there thinking about was that maybe it didn't work. It didn't hit me the same way that it did an audience back then, because I'm sitting there watching this film, and we live in a world now where when we hear about things like paganism, we don't necessarily go evil.
Right.
And like there was this whole part of the film where I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm like, he needs to go home.
Yeah.
He's a
right.
dick.
Leave these people alone.
Like I was just like, he's just a stuffy dick. And I was like, what's his problem? Like, oh, the dance around naked. Okay. Why is that your problem? Like, they're not making you dance around naked. They're not saying, hey, you have to come do this with us. They're just living their lives. And like, it's your problem because you're stuffy and because they don't conform to the moral concepts that you want. But I feel like that's part of the thing, is that well, not all of us, certainly in the last few years, we found that out, but we've been trying to move more towards a world where we look at people and go like, look, man, I know that's not what you believe in. I know that's not how you would live. I know that's not the kind of person you date or what you think marriage is. But here's what I want you to understand. I'm not asking you to live that way. I'm asking you to not condemn or go after this other person for living that way. And like the movie does challenge you to like go, is it them or is it John? And there is a certain extent of like, it's kind of both. But I mean, is it so problematic if that's the way they exist and they're happy? Like, the answer probably is no.
Right.
But I mean, it just haunts us and like it haunts John because it's not the decision we would make. It's not like the way we would want to live. And because of it, we go, oh, that can't be right. But I think that's kind of part of the point of the film too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great film. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Okay, so that's Wake and Fright, and this is the Horror Vision Elements of Horror. And I am Sean.
I am an old vampire.
I'm John.
And I'm Crocodile Dundee.
Hapless teenagers beset by demons in the woods. A strange new drug that turns art into murder. A can't beat a deal on a new house with a horrifying past. A video game that might usher in the apocalypse. From the demented mind of Sean C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires, Shadow Play, and Murder Virus, comes Volume 4, collecting Baker's no sleep work along with several never-before-published short stories. This 99-cent volume also includes the opening chapter of the author's forthcoming teenage giallo novel. Black Gloves and Broken Hearts, due out later this year.